Let me welcome today Sergey Lagodinsky, who is a member of the Assembly of Representatives of the Jewish community in Berlin. We're very pleased to have you here. You've been here for a workshop we've just had on Jewish communities and Muslim communities in both Germany and the US. And first I'd like to ask you to talk about the Jewish community in Berlin in terms of numbers, age breakdown, demographics. Who makes up this community in Berlin, and how do you see it having changed in the last 10, 15 years? If you could talk a little bit about that, that would be very useful for our audiences.
The community in Berlin is the biggest community in Germany, and still it has around 10,000 members. And the membership has experienced a big jump in numbers, and going down now again. It's an interesting development. The community is quite diverse, and the formal membership is dominated by the Russian speakers. Those are immigrants from Russia and the former Soviet Union, many are from Ukraine or other countries as well, who came to Germany during the past 20-23 years. This is a result of immigration policies of the unified Germany, first the Eastern Germany, GDR, and then unified Germany, who decided to continue this policy of inviting Jews from the former Soviet Union. So we have a community now which is dominated by these people, the so-called Russian-speaking Jews, but also has quite a large share of German speakers, people who are well established, mostly those who are children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of displaced persons, people who returned or came to Germany after the World War II and were in DP camps and for various reasons did not move on to other countries, but decided to remain in Germany. By 1989, we had around 27,000 Jewish members of Jewish communities living in Germany as Jews.
In the whole of West Germany?
In the whole of West Germany, and we had around 350 or 400, depending on the statistics, official members of the Jewish community in Eastern Germany.
Mm-hmm. And could you describe the main challenges you see facing the Jewish community in Berlin today?
There are plenty of them. I don't think there will be enough time to describe all of them. Just to maybe in addition to what I said before, I mentioned these 10,000 members of the Jewish community. Those are formal members, mm-hmm. people with a community ID, as they call it. But don't forget that we have a lot of people who are not members of the community, both Jewish or members of family, people, for example, who have a Jewish father and who consider themselves Jewish but are not eligible to mm-hmm. becoming a member. And we also have a lot of American or Israeli Jews. People estimate that we have around 30,000 of Israelis, young Israelis, living in Berlin, enjoying life, trying to establish themselves as artists, business people, etc., etc. So this number of 10,000 is really the formal core of this membership, and we have a lot of satellites, institutionally and individually, who are around there. We have a large community. Back to your questions of challenges, and the challenge is to hold everything and everyone together. There is this aspiration and there is this ambition of the Berlin community to be what they called a unified community that brings together and is an umbrella institution for all denominations, Jewish denominations, and for all different Jews, whatever identity they have. And as the identity is getting more and more diverse, and we have a lot of different cultural push and pull factors, it's getting increasingly difficult to find a common denominator for everyone. It's getting increasingly difficult to remain or to become professional. I think, in my estimation, is that we're still looking for a professional mode of communal work in Germany. We're not there yet. and that is true both to internal work within the community for its members, but also external work with political representatives or with non-Jewish public.
And do you see the challenges in Berlin reflected in challenges in other communities in Germany, or is this a very unique, special Jewish community in Berlin, in part because of the diversity, the way that it's attracted people from so many different places and different backgrounds? Or, you know, what do you see the challenges for the Jewish communities in Germany in general?
I think that those are challenges for all Jewish communities, but there are differences. There are, for example, there is a number of communities in the east of Germany or in smaller western towns, communities which had not existed before this influx of Russian-speaking Jews began in 1989. Those are newly established or re-established communities where most of the people are from the former Soviet Union, people who have not learned how to exercise Jewishness as religion, people who have not learned or have not experienced democratic rules of communal life. And this all is very specific and very challenging for communities who have no people who were there or had been there before the Russians, as they call them, came. So this is a specific challenge for smaller communities. In Berlin, the additional difficulties are, as I mentioned, that we have a lot of various denominations and synagogues who would like to stay together. And this brings another challenge, which is denominational. I think in many other smaller communities you don't have this problem. You usually have maybe one established community and one reformed community, or liberal as they call it in Germany, and then they somehow find a way of getting along, or they don't. But they are not always part of the same umbrella community. In Berlin, in theory at least, it's different.
Do you see the interaction between Jewish communities in Germany and in the US as a channel for providing lessons of how to become more professional, how to see how to deal with denominational questions? I mean, are the situations so different between the Jewish communities in the US and the Jewish communities in Germany that really interaction doesn't lead to shared experiences or best practices, or is that an avenue for
best practices? Is a great thing if we take them with a grain of salt and realize that institutional frameworks are totally different.
And the cultural context.
The cultural context as well, but especially the institutional framework. Having mostly one hierarchical structure, which also the German government and the German authorities expect to have as a partner, which is able to get taxes, to tax other people, or the state taxes other people for them. It depends on different communities. In Berlin, for example, the community itself does this, this taxing. And the fact that most Jewish communities in Germany are heavily subsidized by the state, it changes a lot. There is no culture of philanthropy. There is no understanding of giving. There is a lot of understanding, and this is also partly a cultural problem, of having claims towards the community, expectations towards the community, and perceiving community as somebody providing services rather than something you participate in and you build. And I think this is one of the major aspects that we can probably learn from our American friends, but this learning is difficult because of the framework we are acting in.
And you've spoken mainly about challenges or perspectives within Jewish communities and between Jewish communities throughout Germany. Could you speak a little bit about how Jewish communities see themselves in the larger German society, how they feel they're understood or accepted in the larger German society? Do you see changes at all in those dynamics?
I think that the Jewish communities were privileged because the German society has needed a Jewish voice in Germany, has nourished and cherished the Jewish voice in Germany for obvious political and historical reasons. And in that sense, I don't think that there is a need to be better understood. Of course, we have some relapses, discussions like a discussion on circumcision or on ritual slaughter that we had. But in general, we are faced with a political establishment which is very community friendly. And I think that the challenge is not that. The challenge is popular opinion. I think that the challenge is how regular, normal Germans understand what Jews are and how do they perceive the Jewish community. If you talk to them, many of them would say, we have millions of Jews in Germany. This is an interesting perception, an interesting construct. Many of them would say German Jews are very rich. And if you look at the composition of the communities, and many of them 100%, 95%, and generally we have 95% of recent immigrants. Most of these immigrants are poor and live on welfare. So these perceptions and misperceptions are our main challenges, and they lie on a different level than on a political level of political establishment.
And how do you deal with them as a community or as community leaders? How do you deal with those misperceptions?
You interact with people, you talk to people, you look for allies, you try to explain, to publish articles or to give talks. This is how I understand this work. Many community leaders don't understand this work this way. I must add that I'm in the opposition in the Jewish Parliament of Berlin. I do not represent the board. The board is composed of people whose understanding is in many points different than mine. But since I can't say what I think it would be right, and I think that a lot of people support this view, I think it would be right to say that we should stop understanding ourselves as objects of history or objects of the German society, start acting as actors, start shaping the German society, whether in politics or in culture, something that Jews as a community has not been thinking about for the past decades, I would say, with exceptions of certain individuals. And this transformation of communities to a community of makers, to a community of creating and shaping things, this is the biggest challenge that we're facing in the future.
And some of what you've just said, we heard from Muslim representatives in the workshop that we just had in the last few hours. Do you see common challenges for Jewish communities and Muslim communities in Germany? And do you see places where there can be cooperation, interaction? I know some of that's happening, but is there room for growth in terms of interaction and cooperation between Jewish and Muslim communities?
There is always room for growth when we're talking about interaction. I think there is a lot of potential for collaboration on various issues. And some collaboration happens, but I think it's not enough. There are many grassroots initiatives that take place in this field. I think what we're lacking is an institutionalized cooperation between federal entities, so between Central Council, for example, and federal representations of various Muslim organizations. And this would be something that would be interesting and useful. But as I said, it's not up to me to initiate this change. We are trying as we can, working with our associations or individually on a lower level.
But you sound hopeful that there is room for collaboration. I mean,
Oh, absolutely,
of
course. And there is no future without collaboration. We have to look for coalitions, and especially coalition of minorities is always a great idea because it bolsters solidarity and empathy, and also a creative spirit, because you learn from each other and you have a constant exchange of ideas.
And as we heard from participants from the United States, the issues that are important for Jewish and Muslim communities are issues that are important for American society as a whole, for German society as a whole. So they can provide universal lessons in many ways.
Absolutely, they can, but I think even it's not just about providing society with something. It's not just about that. It's also about diversity as an asset. I think just the fact that a German society today has a minority of Jews and a minority of Muslims, a minority of other various groups, not just religious. I think this is in itself an asset for the German society, and realizing that is key for the future of Germany. Not because we want to use them for this or that, but because diversity is part of liberty.
And it speaks to the reality of German society.
And it reflects a reality that nobody can escape.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me and us, and this was a very interesting exchange, and I hope that we take with us very interesting ideas and can work and collaborate better in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.